So now we've got a solid understanding of the concept of hollow sprints. I want us to move on to our second or next concept of speed development, and that is the idea of accelerated sprints. Now, I'm going to suggest here a particular way to do this, but I want you to understand that this is one example of a more conceptual idea. The idea here is that we use sprinting, but we build acceleration into those sprints. Unlike here where we're doing a sprint and a walk sprint, I suppose there is some acceleration built in it here, but we've got these kind of rest periods, these hollow periods built in. We're going to do it in a different way with this accelerated sprint over here. So let me describe it for you first of all. We're saying that the pace gradually increases. The pace gradually increases. All right, so if we were using the same area over here, look, and we had, rather than a sort of a turquoise person over here, we had a long-armed green person over here, they would accelerate to here, or they'd run to here, and every 10 meters they would accelerate faster. Okay, so every 10 meters, so this would be faster here, faster here, faster here, faster here, faster here, and so on. So by the time they finish at the end, they are at sort of full pace. In fact, probably from about here to here, they would be at somewhat around full pace, okay? So the pace is gradually being increased over that particular distance. I'm going to show you a couple of ways that this can be done. And what we want to sort of say in terms of describing this thing is we want to do that until maximum is reached. And when we're talking about maximum sprinting, we can call that terminal velocity. Terminal velocity, nice little kind of mechanics term for you to have an awareness of terminal velocity, which I think will be good for you just to have in the back of your mind, but maybe. The other thing we say is that often when we do this, we might incorporate some notion of resistance. Okay, so we do include resistance. So think about parachutes, for example, that create greater resistance as we run. But we might just use a simple methodology, which is to do this up hills. Okay, because effectively you've got more resistance going up a hill because there is gravity is working against you to a greater degree as you actually move at an angle away from the earth. A couple of the things, of course, when we do this, we're going to have to incorporate the notion of rest. So it is ultimately a form of interval training, this. So we're going to incorporate rest intervals. Of course, how long we rest for, what type of rest, is a concept of time from the FIT principle. And finally, we're going to obviously incorporate repetitions. Okay, so it's not going to be a once-only sprint. Now, I said I'm going to introduce a particular concept to you. So let me choose a kind of an orange color. I want us to imagine that we've got some notion of a track here, which I've drawn ever so badly, but we've got some notion of, say, a 400-meter track, for example. Let's say that on this 400-meter track, our sprints are going to cover a total distance of 300 meters. And what we might do is, actually it'd be the 1500-meter start line, but 300 meters that someone would need to run to cover this distance and finish here at the finish line. Now, the point I'm going to make here is one way I've seen this being done is you actually take two performers. There's performer number one, drawn, let's be honest, really embarrassingly badly. And there's performer number two. And they're effectively both going to set off. And when they set off, they're going to set off fairly steady. Okay? And my person number one is going to lead first. And my person number two is going to follow first. And the point I'm going to make is that every 10 meters, there is an overtake. So the way we do this is that 10 minutes into this race, my runner number two is going to overtake runner number one. But as they overtake, they're going to maintain their new speed. 10 meters later, runner number two is going to overtake, maintaining their new speed. Then runner number two is going to overtake again, maintaining their new speed. And of course, by the time we get to here, we are at a flat out maximum speed, terminal velocity, towards the end here. And of course, by the time we cross this line, we've worked pretty hard. Okay, so we're not going to set off here as a walking pace with athletes. It's going to be a fairly sort of brisk running pace, but by the time we cross this line, it's going to be absolutely flat. And of course, we can even have the situation with the two athletes or more perhaps racing to that point. So it's one way I've done it before. Obviously, I've mentioned that it could be 300 meters, it could be shorter, it could be longer, depending on the type of athlete, but it's a nice way for you to think about it. Thanks very much.